Hi, I'm Laura Dixon, one of the teachers at Rosie Riveters. I'll show you how to make something called a Newton's Cradle. This is Newton's Cradle. Despite its name, it's not an invention of Isaac Newton. In fact, the science behind the device predated Newton's career in physics. I encourage you to look up more on your own about Newton's cradle. Even though he didn't develop the science behind the cradle, Newton gets name credit for two main reasons. First, the law of conservation of momentum can be derived from his second law of motion. Force equals mass times acceleration. Second, he had greater name recognition than the scientist who invented the cradle, Christian Huygens. This cradle is actually one of the best examples of Newton's third law of motion. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. I want you to think about why that is. Well, let's look at the marbles. So I have 5 marbles, and if I pull one back and let go, what do you think is going to happen? There was a loud click. And if you could see, the marble on this end went this way, but the 3 here and the one that was the one that did the clink remained there. And then when this one swung back, the end one went this way, pushing the ball away from the groove. Based on Newton's third law, what do you think is going to happen if I do 2 balls? 2 balls go. Exactly. Equal and opposite reactions are happening in Newton's cradle. So here's today's challenge. I want you to make a Newton's cradle. I want you to design and create one similar to mine based upon what you have at home. And I need to have it be a working one. So here are the parameters. I need you to build a structure. There must be an odd number of spheres. I'm going to use marbles, but you definitely could use bouncy balls. I found some bouncy balls. They're just a little hard for some beads like this to stick to it. Move that back a little bit. The balls must hang evenly on the structure. That's the third rule. And I'm going to use a hot glue gun, and I want you to remember to be extra careful with hot glue. If you haven't used a hot glue gun, maybe you should have your parent or an older sibling help you. So here are the materials I suggest. I'm going to move this a little bit out of the way. Piece of cardboard to build your structure on. Definitely take some time to make a plan. A good engineer, you've probably already started to imagine in your head what it would be like. Then I want you to make a plan. I think a sketch like this doesn't take very long. So I have a sketch for a cage, some strings, some beads, some platforms. I did this before. And I definitely have done this once before with Rosie Riveters, so I have an advantage, but I like the different iterations. And this is definitely one of those crafts where you may want to do your plan and then wait a few days and then build. And you can always take time to build and redesign and test and fix and all those great things. So you'll need scissors, some sort of string, a hot glue gun that you need to plug in, craft sticks. I have a level. I'm going to show you. You'll see me, I'm going to do a time lapse, you'll see me doing this to make sure it's level, actually using it like a level, but I'm also going to use it, and you can use anything, I just happen to use a level to line them up so to make sure that they're evenly distributed. Marbles and beads, I have the beads on top of the marble, the string goes through them. You might want to use a ruler. I did just a rough estimate, and I pre-cut my string. I would also use masking tape. I already have some pieces ready to go. Oh, here's what I was saying about the bouncy balls. Maybe you could use tennis balls. You could use any sphere. It just means your cradle is going to be bigger. But what happens is the shiny part doesn't really let the glue. I was thinking I could use sandpaper. I could use a tack or a nail or something else. An underused item might be clothespins. It might help you hold things, second pair of hands, or you might incorporate them in your structure. You could use dice or some sort of wood cube to help use as supports. Markers always. And of course, glue sticks. So let's get started. One of the things in my plan is I decided to have a rough, straight edge rather than a curved edge for my supports right here. And so I have 4 of those, and what I did is I used a marker, and then I cut those, and I should have 4 that are even. And then I took 6 sticks, and I started to build my cage. So I'm going to pause the video, and then you'll see a hyperlapse of me creating a Newton's cradle. One more thing, you might want to use safety glasses when you're using the hot glue gun. A lot of my students also like to wear gloves. I consider myself an expert on hot glue. I still occasionally burn my finger, but I'm really careful. So check with your parent on what you should do if you're using a hot glue. Start building my structure. Here it comes. So now you can see that I have all 5 of them taped, ready to go. One thing you'll notice, the difference between this one that's not quite finished and this one, is when I pull it and test it, they start to move around. So on this one, they don't move. I glued the string to the bead so that it doesn't move around. Versus this one, you can still slide it, and that's what's happening. So I'm going to go ahead and glue the string to the top of the structure, and then I'm going to put some glue so that it doesn't move around. So I'm going to line them up and do that real quick to finish it up. While that's setting, you can see there's a lot of those, I call them glue hairs from the hot glue. I'm trying to clean those off. And then I'm going to go ahead and remove the tape. I want to make sure these don't get stuck together. And then I'm going to remove the tape very carefully and trim those. You can leave those showing if you want. It's up to you. Careful not to glue the tape down. One time I did that. So just give the hairs and the strings a little haircut. Again, if you want them showing, that's part of your design. It's kind of the fun part where you can make this into a tower, you can do whatever you want, you can decorate, glitter, markers, name your cradle. Laura's Magnificent Newton's cradle. You may want to put one on top of here just to hide it. Again, It's up to you. You're the designer. You're engineering it and designing it the way you want to make it. And that's Newton's cradle, to show the third law of motion. This one has less of the hairs.